Guys, we've made it. We've finally got to the end of the road with this Saw franchise, with these retrospective reviews. We're at the end of the line, end of the train. We're at Spiral, the Book of Saw movie, this reboot that you would call it for Saw, but we've made it. So let's talk about Spiral. Let's get into it here. Now, when it comes to this movie, I'll be completely honest, I was not expecting this movie at all to even come out. When it did come out, my initial reaction was, okay, let's see what they do with it. I did do a video, like a collab, my very first collab on the channel with Jason Entertainment. We did talk about this movie more in depth. I got to hear his thoughts. He's more of a fan of the movie versus me. I posted that video, so I'll link that somewhere up here. You can go check out that collab here and also go support Jason's channel. Link I'll definitely post in the description down below as well, but go check out their video so you can hear that collab, that discussion, the spoiler discussion of the movie. But yeah, when it comes to this movie, yeah, like I said, not a huge fan of it. Really wasn't a fan of the Jigsaw voice, but we'll talk about all of that as we're talking about the movie. Not like the previous movies where you've got following the main characters and you've got this Saw game taking place. This kind of felt like a out of the box Saw movie, because essentially the opening sequence is here. You've got this police officer in this carnival festival. This person robs this woman's purse, so he goes after that person, leads him into the sewer where he does get drugged and he does end up in the Saw trap. And I'm doing massive air quotes when it comes to this, because he's got his tongue stuck in this mechanism here in front of like the train track. He has to complete this test in order for him to be able to escape, because he's been lying on the stand and that kind of stuff. So for him to be able to escape before the train hits him, which of course not able to do, so the train crashes into him and he just gets spilled all over the place. And so now we get introduced to the main lead of the movie, Chris Rock, which, despite my negatives that I'm going to throw out throughout this movie, Chris Rock honestly did surprise me with his performance. He actually did a really good job in the movie. He's more known for comedy roles, but with this movie there's a more serious tone. I think he did bring a great element into the movie and actually made the movie slightly more better than it could have been if it was a different actor. But we see him not in a police officer role. He's undercover. He's talking with this crew. They're robbing this hotel. As they're robbing the hotel, as they're trying to escape the police raid it, which blow his cover, and so he's kind of pissed off about that. We sort of get a little bit of the backstory when it comes to him and his relationship with the police department. He doesn't trust anybody since they sort of shot him in the back. So he's having this huge argument with police captain Angie, and that's where she introduces him to his partner Shenki. I think that's how you pronounce his name. Honestly, I completely forgot how to pronounce the name, but his partner in the movie. As the movie is progressing, you're seeing Jigsaw throw these tapes and clues towards Chris Rock's character, for example the tongue from the first cop in the first scene. So he's going to the scene of the crimes. He's doing all these investigation here. You've got his partner also trying to help him out, trying to find out who is behind all of this. All in all, you're following the detective, like for example the Jigsaw movie, the 2017 one. You're following the detectives going after Jigsaw, similar to this one. So you've got Chris Rock going after Jigsaw, following the clues. We then get introduced to his father, playing by Samuelljackson, which, upon doing a little bit of more research, is that Samuelljackson was pretty happy to be part of this movie. It's something unique that he hasn't done in the past, which I feel isn't the case, because he kind of reminds me similar to vibes of Die Hard with Vengeance. A real classic. If you haven't seen it, I highly recommend that movie. But he just wanted to be part of the movie, which I did find weird having him, because he didn't really bring much to the movie other than a couple of scenes throughout the movie and in the final part, in the ending, which we'll talk about. I feel if they were going to bring in Samuelljackson, he could have been used a lot more, in my personal opinion. So not only are we following Chris Rock and his partner, other detectives, because Chris Rock was taking the lead on this case, but the other detectives, because of this tension that we're getting from earlier on in the movie, we find out that nobody trusts each other when it comes to Chris Rock versus the rest of the police force. They're out doing their own investigation. So you've got one of the officers who we find out in flashbacks ignore Chris Rock's call for backup when he was chasing a perk, very early on in his career, goes and does his own surveillance. He ends up getting drugged up and is in this trap of his own, which is basically him having to pull all of his fingers and his fingers just get ripped apart because of him and how crooked he is. Because the aim of the game with Jigsaw in this movie is that he's taking out all these corrupt officers, these crooked cops, to make a statement to Chris Rock's character here. So that officer ends up dying in the movie. And so once again, Chris Rock ends up getting a tape, which leads him to the scene of the crime where he gets a box filled with that officer's fingers. And one thing I would have to say as well is a thing that really, really bugged me in this movie is you're getting Jigsaw with the voice recording. Normally you get John Kramer or you even get Hoffman throughout the movies doing the voice recording. Sometimes even one time you got Amanda doing it. But this one just, I don't know, it felt like I was listening to Siri doing a voice recording for Jigsaw. And I even tried to get my own Siri on my own phone to do the same voice. And I kid you not, I wish I recorded it because it's really similar in terms of the tone and the voice and everything. I just really was not a fan of the voicing, and it bugged me every single time whenever they would play the recording of Jigsaw. And even the new Billy the Puppet, which was a pig in finger strings, just really wasn't a fan of that whatsoever. So again, as they're doing the detective work, Chris Rock gets another package, which is apparently that ugly version of Billy the Puppet with the pig with a bottle of paint inside it, which we come to find out was actually from a butcher shops, which Chris Rock and his father visited years ago. They see a man who's been skinned, and we're led to believe that it's Chris Rock's partner, that Shanky guy, the new rookie. He apparently is the one that's being skinned alive, so another detective down and out. And then we get to the next victim of Jigsaw, which is the police captain, Angie. So she goes into the evidence room. There's gas that gets leaked. She passes out. When she wakes up, she's laying in the bed with this thing on her spine that she has to basically break a spinal cord in order for her to escape. Otherwise, if not, then this wax just comes and goes into her face. And for me, this is one of my favorite kills in the movie, with Angie, with the wax just pouring on her face and Chris Rock's peeling the wax, seeing her face just being burnt. This is one of my favorite kills in the movie, and with her just being another police officer being crooked, because we come to find out that her and Samuelljackson were trying to do cover-ups as well. So she's another one down and out by Jigsaw. A really gruesome death. Once this happens, Chris Rock is going to look at the cameras, trying to see what's going on. He sees that some minutes are missing. Person that's been logged is a person who I didn't really talk about, but he was a former police officer. He was partnered with Chris Rock, and because he shot a witness, Chris Rock reported him, and that's where all the tension started building up. So that officer ended up going to jail. He's out of jail. His name was apparently on the log with the minutes missing, so he goes to confront him to find out that he's not there at the place where he was earlier on in the movie, in the church. And then Chris Rock ends up getting drugged, and he wakes up handcuffed in this warehouse. So now we're moving on to the third act of the movie here. So you've got Chris Rock waking up. He's able to uncuff himself. He goes throughout the warehouse. He sees the Peter guy, the former police officer, the one I just mentioned here. He's all hung up, and we see this machine just splattering pieces of glass onto this officer's back, front. Chris Rock has to try and find the key in order for him to be able to unlock him, but he's not able to do it in time. That police officer ends up dying. So then Chris Rock continues throughout the warehouse, and then we get the big reveal, which, I'll be completely honest, you kind of see it from a mile away. My wife, we watched it for the first time, caught onto it immediately. So the reveal was not underwhelming, but not as great as for example, John Kramer in the first movie or any of the other movies. So the reveal was kind of a meh, okay type of reveal. But we get to see his motives, which I think is a pretty decent motive. So we come to find out that the officer, the one that just died from all the glass and everything like that, the one that shot a witness, actually was the one that shot Chris Rock's partner's father as he witnessed it as a child. So he worked his way through the ranks to be able to partner up with Chris Rock. So this was a 12-year mission of his because of the crooked police officers ending up killing his dad. So the motives are more reasonable than you would think. The decisions and the reasons for all of this happening do make a lot of sense, but it's just the way that it was revealed and the setup just really felt very meh to me. So the guy ends up calling the police so that everything can lay into his trap. He ends up taking Chris Rock to Samuelljackson, his dad. We see that Samuelljackson is all tied up with blood just being pulled out of him here, and Chris Rock has the opportunity to either shoot his partner or shoot the bullseye thingy to free his dad. So he ends up shooting the target, ends up releasing his dad. He goes and has this little tussle with the partner. They end up like beating each other up. They go into this elevator, and then because the partner called 911, called the police, all these police officers coming into the building, we end up finding that Samuel Jackson was stuck in this contraption thingy where it basically lifts him up, and he had, I believe it was a gun on his wrist or his arms, which looked like he was going to shoot the police officers. So the police officers rain hell on him, shoot up Samuel Jackson in front of Chris Rock, and the partner, the jigsaw of the movie, ends up escaping through the elevator here, ending the movie. And so like I mentioned, like with this, overall it just felt like a very underwhelming, like this could have been like a great decent detective type of movie. Again, I mentioned this in the collab with Jason in the video. This reminded me a lot of like the movie Mystic River, and it just had that kind of vibes to it in terms of like the detective, in terms of the tone of the movie, in terms of like the twists and turns. And I felt like this, if it was just a standalone movie, would have been a decent watch, a movie that you could honestly rewatch and be looking forward to a sequel. But because they wanted to attach Spiral, Saw, all of that to the Jigsaw franchise, it just honestly didn't work for me, because for me it really didn't feel like a Saw movie. It felt like a movie with sword being attached to it, because even the sword traps, other than that Angie one, the police captain with the hot wax, you really didn't get much when it comes to like the sword traps. Like realistically, the guy pulling his fingers off, okay, the first scene with the tongue in the train, sure, but then other than that, there was no Saw games, there was none of that kind of stuff. The Jigsaw voice really is probably the worst voicing of Jigsaw in the whole franchise. So it really was not a great way to reboot the franchise if you were gonna reboot it, and it's just not a great entry into the Saw movies for me. I know there are people out there, including Jason, who does enjoy the movie, but I just feel like for me, as like a big fan of Saw and seeing all the previous Saw movies, it just didn't work. It didn't connect well. But those are my thoughts about Spiral, the Book of Saw. I want to know your thoughts in the comment section down below, so definitely let me know. And again, if you are new to the channel, consider hitting that subscribe button, consider hitting the like button, notification bell, all that YouTube stuff. Again, I've done all the Saw movies, so again, I'll put a playlist somewhere on the video here where you can check out all the reviews for all the Saw movies that I have done. And definitely keep an eye out on the channel, because sawx coming out in the next couple of days, along with the tier ranking for all the Saw movies. So really pumped for this video. So definitely consider subscribing and make sure so that you're making sure you're not missing out on that video. But thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for listening. This is YK Reviews.